Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I am your host, JP John Poz. With me today is a very, very special guest. He is a writer, a director, a producer, a comedian, a screenwriter. He's done it all. He is, of course, Spenny from the infamous Kenny versus Spenny, Mr. Spencer Rice. Welcome to the two-man power trip. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, a musician too. Don't forget that.
And musician, yes. How could I forget that? Man, you've
the only thing
everything.
you make money with these days. So there you have it.
It is crazy just to think of like what I know you from, of course, Kenny versus Spenny, and
right.
you being a legend in that genre, but you've done a million other things. I mean, geez, what are you up to now?
Right now, I've got two shows that I do on my YouTube channel, which came out as a result of COVID, not being able to really tour. I'm doing a show called a solo show called The Spennissance Man. I'm going to be in British Columbia with 6 dates, I think, at the end of this month, and then I hit the road with Kenny in your country. We're playing, New York City, Detroit, Philadelphia, and I can't remember the fourth one.
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
I will be at that one. I got the VIP actually for that.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Right. Good. Yeah, that should be interesting. It really is our first foray into touring the United States. So, our assumption is that it's going to be filled with Kenny versus Spenny fans. If we're prepared for for either or, if they know who we are or not. So
it's funny. I talked to him via email a few weeks ago, and he goes, go talk to Spenny. He's the wrestling guy. I was like, well, get me in contact with Spenny. Because I want to get you on, but I didn't have a direct contact. So he was the one that linked me to you, but it was just so funny. His sarcastic ass said, oh, he's the wrestling guy.
Yeah. I mean, Kenny's foray into wrestling. I've done quite a few live shows with Tommy Dreamer and Billy Gunn, and a local promoter, Chinlock Wrestling, does charity shows every year that are quite big.
Jan, I know him pretty well. Yeah,
Jan Murphy. And so Kenny's foray was Yarp Yarp, which I don't even know how to characterize, because there was no wrestling involved, but he certainly had an interesting gimmick. Let's just put it that way.
I remember that episode. Who's the better pro wrestler?
Well, actually, my favorite, and I can't tell you how long it took me to convince him to do that. And it was only when I explained to him, that it is now kayfabe days are over, so we can, talk about the practicing, the choreographing, you might want to say, and then he sort of was more interested, because he's not all that athletic. So so we had to figure out a way to be Kenny and not get into the ring and be physical.
Now, you said that's your favorite episode?
Well, it not really, but it was one of the top ones for me, because I got to work with Tyson Dukes, who I call Tyson Ducks, and I've had somewhat of a feud with. Are you familiar with him?
Very familiar. I actually interviewed him, I'd say about 5 years ago. I should interview him again, because he does a great YouTube series where he literally breaks down all the holds. I mean, really, really good stuff.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I mean, he is so committed and passionate about wrestling. So I got to work with him, and I got suplexed, and I got chest, what are they called? The slaps. Those were painful. So that was, and then most importantly, when I told Tyson that I wanted to bleed, and he was so into it, because he's an old school guy, and I bled very well, if you saw that episode. And and as crazy as it sounds, I'm very proud of that, and I'm happy that I did it, and that Tyson, cut me, and it was a really great thing. I only say it wasn't my favorite episode, because there are other episodes that we did that I think were more popular. That might have been my favorite one to do.
With that too, the blading aspect of it. I mean, They don't even really do that anymore. There's not really that much blood in karate wrestling, but
No.
like the art of it. I mean, obviously the blade, hiding it, doing it where you don't hurt yourself, you do it before. I mean, there's so much more to the art of it, and it leads to the emotion and everything with the match. But that's awesome that on that episode, of course, and Sheiky Baby, Iron Sheik makes an appearance.
Yeah,
But you were
that
able
was
to do that with Tyson.
yeah, and Abby Abdullah used to, have it in his tape, and he'd just sort of poke at you and get you
Yep.
going. I did. I was told that if he was going to cut me, that I should take some Tylenol or aspirin. I can't remember what it was, to thin my blood, which I actually forgot to do, but it didn't seem to matter. I bled. I mean, it looked like a '70s wrestling magazine cover. It was amazing.
How'd you guys get the Iron Sheik involved? I mean, that's pretty cool that you guys were able to get him to do that.
Yeah, you might be familiar with two twins, Canadian twins. They've done the Sweet Daddy Siki movie, and they did the Iron Sheik documentary. They had the connection to Sheik, and I'd known those guys for a long, long time. So I had our coordinator give him a call, and they made it happen. And I'm forgetting their name. I can't even believe I'm forgetting.
Was it the Megan brothers? Or
yeah, the Megans. Yeah, Gian, and oh God, I'm sorry. I'm just.
I don't remember the first names, but I know it's the Megan brothers because they still run like Iron Sheik social media stuff.
Yeah, and they're good. They're good guys. I did a roast with Iron Sheik, a couple of shows, so they sort of toured with that. That was a lot of fun, and they paid me, and it was great. Yeah. In fact, my joke was about them that they were Dr. Mengele's wet dream, right? Two Jewish identical twins. But yeah, that was a fun episode, I have to say. I just and it probably might have been my favorite to do, but there are other ones that were pretty good too. So,
but then Sheiky Baby tries to sodomize you. He's nuts.
Yeah, he was. I'm not, very gossipy, but I will sort of dance around it to say that he wasn't sober at all during our time with him. He was, and when I went on the small little dates with the roast with him, he's very immobile. He's, like many of those guys, they're not in good shape, unfortunately. And but when you add the drugs and everything like that, it gets pretty messy. But he did his thing, Hulk Hogan, magnet, and all that stuff. He knows what he has to do, and he does it.
Yep. So you and Kenny, like you said, doing a little bit of a U.S. tour. You guys are finally getting back out there. What kind of spurred this? Like, what was like the inciting incident that happened with you guys that you wanted to kind of do this?
Do what? The live touring?
Yeah, do the tours in the United States.
We've been doing it for 6 years. We've just been staying in Canada and Europe. We just hadn't gone to the States. Partially because the tickets are selling well, so we're quite happy. But we didn't really know the US because we were really only on for that one season there. We knew like Germany, Australia, everywhere in Canada. And touring is a money-making proposition. And, the worst thing that could happen is, you don't sell tickets and you don't make money, or even worse, lose money. So we're quite happy with the ticket sales. And the United States is such a big country, right? So, where do you go? So we decided to sort of stick to the eastern part of the country. I have no idea if we'd probably do well in LA and Chicago. Anywhere else is anybody's guess as far as I know. But, it's a good live show. And we're basically, because, we were touring the same markets, we had to come up with a new show every so often. You can't go back to a same territory with the new territory. There's a wrestling term. So we're basically doing the best of all those 5 years. So the States is going to get a pretty good show in terms of tested material. And, it's a train wreck. We're a train wreck, and I think it's unique. I think it's very unique as someone, and Kenny also is a comedy nerd. It's a very unique comedic show. It's mostly stand up with the two of us, but then there's some clips and stuff like that. So I'm excited.
I feel like it's definitely selling well because I went to go whatever Saturday it was to buy the tickets, turned my back for 2 seconds, or it was 5 minutes late or something, and I couldn't get the ticket I wanted. So I was like, okay, I guess it's selling better than than expected. So I had to get another ticket. So I was like, man, crazy.
Yeah, we were very happy about that. Because again, like I said at the beginning, like if these are just people I don't, who want to see us but aren't familiar with Kenny versus Spenny, it changes the kind of material we can do. Obviously, we don't want to refer to Kenny versus Spenny if no one knows what we're talking about. But our guess is, and it's still a guess, but it's a pretty safe guess based on how quickly the tickets were selling, that these are going to be Kenny versus Spenny fans, which is, Kenny versus Spenny is, for me, has been a blessing and a curse, right? The blessing is, of course that, when I go play music and I play blues, classic rock and country, most people only know who I am because of that show, and they might show up based on that. So the curse, of course, is being Spenny and being the butt of all the jokes and all that stuff, which is fine. The second banana, I could go on and on and on. But I've launched this new solo show, which is in many respects my fighting back for my reputation. But it's going to be funny, and so even in non-Kenny versus Spenny projects, the brand, I hate to say brand, but the character, the brand, it's really me fundamentally, is known for that. So I can't escape it, which is good and bad.
And where's this solo tour? Where are you going to be doing the solo stuff at?
Well, I did 5 dates in Ontario, and we're going to British Columbia, which is the west coast of Canada, playing Vancouver, Chilliwack, Whistler, which is a ski resort town. There's about 6 of them. I can't think of them all right now, but Victoria, which is a great city out in the west coast of Canada. So I think it's a theater show personally, but I'm playing in bars, which is where I play my music, and hopefully it'll build to the point or get some word of mouth, and I can move it to bigger venues where I think it's more appropriate. But the last tour went really well, so I'm pretty happy with it. And I look at it as my whole career as a workshop. What works, what doesn't work, and then you go back and you fix what didn't work, just like comedians who tape their sets and see what gets a laugh, what doesn't get a laugh.
So going back to Kenny versus Spenny, because that's how I know you. That's how I was introduced to you. We had you for one season, like you said, but then I went back and got all the DVDs. So I watched a bunch. I was showing you before. I got some old school Kenny versus Spenny DVDs. Yeah. So Trey Parker and Matt Stone, South Park, they're saying, they're probably one of the funniest shows ever, is saying that you guys are 2 of the funniest people ever. So I'm like, I got it. Regardless, I got to listen to them, whatever they say. So I'm watching it. One of the funniest shows, unique reality TV times 10. You're hilarious. Kenny's hilarious, but he's like the villain, the heel. You're the baby face usually. So like, just in essence.
So let me interrupt you there, because if you think about the Attitude Era, what used to be the heel kind of became the faces, at least the crowd favorite. Yeah. And that's somewhat the conundrum I found myself in, and my reaction to it, and I call myself a reverse heel, is that, the more I piss people off by talking about the environment or saving gorillas or IBS and using the platform for, do good purposes, when I realized that was getting me heat, as we say in wrestling, I doubled down on it, right? Yep. And I think it was a smart decision. But it is this, it's like watching Wrestling with Heart, the Bret Hart documentary. He noticed that, all of a sudden the heels were the faces, and everything reversed at a certain point, which is, I guess, a function of just evolution of anything. So, but, we're not idiots. We get it. We get it. Kenny is loved for his Machiavellian, disgusting humor and all that stuff. And I'm the other guy. The nice thing about it is it kind of breaks down to who we really are. So it's not really an act. It's just, it's a TV show. So you have to capitalize on whatever's out there. And so that's sort of how it played down. And in fact, the live tour, the last version of our live tour was really Kenny trying to prove that I'm actually worse than he is by drawing on our past, which well before the TV show, when I was somewhat of a rambunctious young man, to say the least. And it's like he's trying to do a swerve on me or whatever, and it worked. It absolutely worked. Me defending myself for horrible things I did actually worked. We were nervous about it, because now all of a sudden I'm the crazy guy, but I was when I was that age. So it's honest. So we do try to keep things honest and real.
When you think of Kenny versus Spenny, let's say somebody never saw the show. Explain kind of the show to like somebody that hadn't seen it, that you're like selling the pitch to them.
Yeah, it's very simple. I mean, it's two best friends, real life best friends, competing against each other in comedic based competitions, with the loser having to do a humiliating act of some kind that the winner chooses. The only addition I would make to that is that the two best friends, like many best friends, are very different people in almost every way. So we got to capitalize on that as well. And that's it. That was the simplicity of that show, and it was it did us proud. The simple aspect of it. It was easy for people to get their heads around. My only gripe about it is I think there's some deeper philosophical things going on that most of our audience doesn't either care about or understand or pay attention to. I don't know which one it is, but I do think that one of the reasons the show is compelling is because of those sort of, the thoughts of, is Kenny taking it too far? Is Kenny an idiot? All these things. And so that's what that, we benefited from all that, I think.
I always thought too, it's like, okay, he's definitely like the heel, like you said, like a Steve Austin, who's he's doing all this bad stuff, but he's getting cheered for it. You guys are saying who could lose the most weight? He takes the cheap way out. You're exercising, whatever. He gets the cleanse, and he's basically cheating. But you're almost
kind of wasn't cheating. You're talking about gaining the most weight, but he did cheat at the end. I didn't know, of course. He had weights on in his hair, tied into his hair.
Yep.
Here's the thing. There's it's sort of a ongoing conversation within the fans and Kenny and I, which we talk about in the live show, which is, what is the actual record? Who won more? Who, in the over 92 or 3 episodes that we did. And there's just, it really depends on what kind of person you are. To me, I'm a centrist. So I think, sometimes he outsmarted me. Sometimes he beat me outright. However, when he completely cheated, like took the octopus off his head, or we could go through a number of things. And in most sports, I guess you would reward the victory to the guy who didn't cheat, if someone, a disqualification, so to speak. But some people don't care. Kenny's argument is it's care versus I don't care. And that's bullshit, because Kenny cares more than you'll ever know. He just likes to put out an image that he doesn't care. That's why he goes to such lengths to beat me, because he cares so much. So that's something that comes up in the live show, and I jump all over him because I know it's complete bullshit. But Kenny's like that. He's got a lot of charisma and a lot of charm, and he's got a crazy kind of mind. And I'm stuck with him, and the tension between us, we turn into comedy, and it's working. Right, it's been working for years now.
So let's just say arm wrestling. We'll go back to the arm wrestling competition. He's going to beat Spencer Rice, but it's going to end up being some little kid named Spencer Rice. Is that cheating? I mean,
no, I would say that would be a null and void. We just would forget that episode. The competition never happened. But again, if you go to Wikipedia, someone with way too much free time on their hands went through every competition and sort of fairly judged, but for the out and out obvious cheats, he gave me a victory. Some say I won the whole, series. I don't think I did. I think it was a lot closer. If you glance at, when I talk to fans, I get the feeling that they thought I never won,
really?
That's the overriding feeling. But it just seems so, at my age to be talking about this still is just pathetic. But this is where I find myself, so I have to do it, and I will stick up for myself. When it comes to the win-loss record, because I don't think it's what people think it is.
Hey, the fans love it. I mean, they love kind of going back and say who won the most and who lost and that kind of stuff.
Well, I would direct them to that Wikipedia page because I think it's rational. It's rational because you can always argue that, like, for example, the beer competition, sort of one of our more famous ones, where Kenny knows I can outdrink him, but he doesn't want to lose on TV, so he'll do anything. In that episode, his decision was to drink de-alcoholized beer. To me, that's chicken shit. That's bullshit. But it works on a comedy level. So it's very confused. The whole thing. That's why I call it a train wreck. Because it is. It's just a complete train wreck of egos and bad behavior and silliness.
A lot of the times he is thinking of ways, not cheap, but let's say bend the rules or like somehow take a shortcut. You're not usually like that.
No, and the reason for that is because I'm an only child. He grew up with an older brother. My understanding, based on my wife, for example, who had a brother that was older, that there was just a lot of pranking going on, a lot of teasing, a lot of smack talk. I had none of that. So I was the perfect mark for Kenny in that sense. Let's look at the who could stay naked the longest competition, where what he ended up doing was turning the clock back. So I thought it was a draw. Now that's on the cusp. That's not cheating to me. That's outsmarting me.
Yep.
Even though it's it's unorthodox, but who can stay longest naked is unorthodox as a competition. So. Yep. I think I'm very reasonable about all this stuff. I don't want to claim that I won something I didn't win. And, as stupid as it all is, I try to be fair, but I think it's fair to say if he doesn't have the balls to compete in certain competitions for whatever reason, I should be given the victory if the competition actually took place.
I agree. Who actually thinks up the competitions? Or is that you and him together? Like, who thinks it up?
Yeah, we would pitch the competitions together. Kenny, his approach, I think, was that it had to sound funny. Where I was like, okay, we'll do some of those, but let's do badminton and let's do golf, and let's play. He never wanted to do anything that didn't sound funny, and that might have been a good idea. I don't know, but I probably would have won more if we did actual sports, at least, and I'm no great athlete, but compared to him, he could probably beat me in handball because he used to play handball with his old man. So where we made some smart decisions from a producer's perspective or a creative perspective was, I'd known Kenny, for decades before we were ever on TV. So I knew exactly what he was and who he was. So then it begs the question, well, you must have known he was going to, cheat, or, why would you even enter into something like this? And the reality was that when we would come up with the idea, then we would separate, and I would basically do the everyman version of what someone would do in a competition, and he would do whatever his Machiavellian thing is. But I was never knew in the creative process what he was going to do. I was separate. They would have production meetings where I would not be present, and so that therefore my camera crew and sound knew what he was going to do. They knew what was coming. I had no idea, and that was a smart decision creatively, I think, and it lent authenticity to the show because it prevented from imagine if he had blown that minute and a half fart on the stairs and no one photographed it or shot it, right? So there was always and then we'd have to redo it, which wouldn't be good. I mean, was the show 100% authentic? No, we had networks that got involved at different times, but for the most part, we really did as silly as it is, we did real competitions. We really competed against each other. And And fans are always trying to find little things here and there that didn't make sense. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. We did, we had a responsibility to deliver a show. I mean, the great example is the Who Can Sit on a Cow, which I think was season 1 the longest. Who Can Sit on a Cow the longest? And when we thought about it, we just thought we're going to be on these cows for at least 12 hours, before my back gives out or one of us. And of course, what happened was, as soon as I get on the cow, Kenny throws this little toy at the cow's feet, and the cow takes off, and I fall off. So we won 22 minutes of television, but the actual competition lasted 30 seconds. So we had to pad the beginning of the show with stuff that, that we'd already shot, but wasn't that strong. So that was a competition where the ending might have been one of the best we ever did, but the bulk of the show was kind of snoozy. So, that's how we really tried to, we didn't want to, okay, Spenny, you fell off too quickly, get back on and we'll do, we didn't want to do that. It was too perfect what happened. So we had to figure out how to make the front part of the show, that episode, fun to watch. And, we did, but it was hard.
Who thinks up the punishments? Which could also be the best part of the show.
Kenny, historically, because he's got that kind of, I'll give you an example. There's a video of a humiliation that was never accepted by the network where I put a condom on my tongue and I licked a cat's ass, basically. And so people think like I'm a sicko. I didn't have the idea to do that. He did. In fact, my ideas were so lame that he would have to, and then I'd have to agree, that this was because he pitched it for himself. And I said, well, it's got to be bad, man, because you made me do some horrific things. So, I don't know. I just don't have that kind of brain. We have very different brains, the way our brains work. And that was a very good thing for the comedy.
Yeah, the yin and the yang. I mean, the good, the evil, the two opposites.
Yeah, but it wasn't an act. It's really that we're different, right? And like I've always, before we ever had any notion that we'd be on television, like going to an airport with Kenny, it was so funny to me because as soon as he walks in, he is on a mission to make sure he won't have to line up to get, now he's got the Nexus card and everything. But back then it was like a chess game. And that's the way he approaches driving and just things where I wouldn't say I'm a happy-go-lucky guy, but I don't think strategically in real life. If I have to line up, I line up, I don't spend time thinking. You can see him thinking, like I know him so well, like I can see when he's scheming, and it could be for how to get more toppings on his pizza, at a restaurant, but it's a constant with him. It's always has been with him. So it's a luck of the draw that our fathers were friends and we knew each other, and we ended up loving being creative together and then getting a TV show and all that stuff. It's a lot of luck involved with that synergy.
Who thought of the idea for the show, or was it just a collaboration? Like this is
I
how
don't
it should be done.
What happened was Kenny, of course, will take credit for everything. I think on his Twitter account it says at the top, "I did everything on Kenny versus Spenny." Of course, that's easily unproved by watching the show. But anyways, what happened was we did a movie called Pitch, which was a documentary that we did of Kenny and I trying to sell a feature film script. And we shot it in LA and at the Toronto Film Festival. And Toronto was our hometown. And some executive who was working for Will Smith's company had seen that movie and felt that we had a comedy duo relationship that might work on television. So we got what was called a development deal, and they gave us some money. We moved to LA. So, the whole thing slept on couches and all that. And we went around and pitched the show. So there were 5 different shows that we had, because usually you don't go in with one idea. That's a philosophical thing. Some people just want to go in with one because it cheapens the other ones if you have 5. But we were going for you throw it against the wall, see what sticks method, which is what David Tochterman, who was worked with Will Smith's company as their talent guy, he wanted have some more ideas in case they don't like. And so it was one of those ideas. I don't know who came up with it, to be honest. And if it was Kenny, fine. I don't care. to be honest. He cares. He has to. Everything has to be. He created it. He did it. He's the funny guy. He's the genius. I don't have any of that in me, so I just don't remember.
Do you ever see that show Impractical Jokers?
Yeah,
It
a
pop-
little bit. Yeah, some
So
people say it's similar. I don't see any similarity between the two of us.
the thing that I thought was similar was at the end, the punishment or whatever. I feel like they not lifted it, but they kind of probably saw your show and like, that's a great idea. Let's kind of do a punishment for the
Yeah.
guy that loses. That's very,
And we lifted
similar.
from Tom Green, and Keith Richards lifted from Chuck Berry, and
Right.
wrestlers. They, not only do they borrow, they take the entire Nature Boy. It was originally
Buddy Rogers. Yeah.
Buddy Rogers. So that is just something you have to live with in the creative world.
To me, as soon as I saw that, like, man, I was like, that's Kenny versus Spenny's thing. Not that it matters, and you guys probably don't care, but it's just funny that idea is so great, like the punishment, humiliation, whoever loses
Well, it's so
gets
simple.
embarrassed.
Yeah, so simple. Again, I didn't even know. I don't think I just watch a little bit here and there, and I'm not putting them down if they have a success. I'm not. I have no jealousy in me, no ego in me. I like to see people succeed at what they do. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so lambasted, because we're supposed to be, I said one of the episodes, one of my favorite lines. I don't know where it came from, but I said, it's a dog eat dog world, and I don't like to eat dogs. And that's pretty much how I feel about life. So, if they lifted from us and we're successful doing it, gazai gazunt, as the Jews say.
What's your least favorite punishment that you had to do? Like the humiliation? What was the worst one?
Well, in order to truly, you have to think about it this way. I became, having done so many of them, calloused. So at the end, the things that seemed really, really horrible and grotesque, it was just, okay, let's do it. I was just used to it. So in the first early season, I don't remember what the competition was. I lost, or supposedly lost. They took me to this sort of dingy apartment where there was a transvestite. It was like a man in a wig with a dress on who attached me to a I don't know, almost like a crucifix, and not with nails, obviously, and then it was going to whip me. And it seemed so innocent, but what people don't understand is that was very early on in me being on TV and me doing the show. And at one point, when I was tied, I was securely tied, and Kenny threatened to pull my underwear off. So then I'm just like, oh my God, there's 3 cameras all pointed at me. I'm completely vulnerable. Forget the whipping. I'm more worried that, if he pulls off his thing, someone's going to take a picture. It's going to end up on the internet. Of course, he didn't do it. He threatened me, but that was one of the worst humiliations for me, because I wasn't used to the whole process.
That's got to be a little scary sometimes. You never know what Kenny's going to do, right? He's a recluse.
Right. He could have done that. I mean, he's pulled down the pants of Bobby, who's a sort of a tertiary character on the show, I guess you'd say, just an old friend of ours. And when he comes to some of the live shows we do, and he's pulled down his pants several times. So yeah, he's capable of doing that. I think with me, I don't think he would admit it, that if he did something that awful, I would punch him hard. And I think he knows that about me, because if you look at the show, I'm much more violent than he is in general in life. I'm not proud of it, and I'm not saying I'm tough, but I can get violent, especially if I'm drinking, if I'm pushed far enough.
Why did the show end at one point? Was it just one of those things where it ended? Did you guys have like a breakup, or what happened there?
No. I think I'd like to say like Seinfeld, we just knew it was going to start getting lame, so we got out early. What happened was the network that we were on, the overall network was bought by another company. And at the time, the Trailer Park Boys was a very big show that was with us. We were the hour-long block of comedy on that network. When the new people took over, they were just done with comedy on that network, and it turned into Hot Chick Cops Network, and that was it. And that's the biz. That's the way it goes. So I have to look at it and say, my God, we did, 6.5, 7 seasons. How lucky am I,
Yeah.
So that's the way I look at life. Nothing lasts forever. And the fact that we got to go that long and we were on in the States, even if it was only for 1 year, and, we get to tour out of it, it's been a real blessing.
How did you kind of get mixed up with Trey Parker and Matt Stone though? Like, how did you like meet them, or is it one of those things where they recognize their Canadian brothers and like, oh, we got to help these guys out? Like, how did that happen?
Here's the quick scenario of what happened. Toronto has a big film festival every year in September. It's probably going on right now, actually. It's the Con would be the biggest one in the world. Toronto is up there, if not the second biggest for sure. Anyhow, Kenny was at a festival party, because that's what it is. It's like a million films are shown from all over the world, and then there's parties at night. So he was at a party, and he met a guy named Kyle McCullough. And Kyle was one of the staff writers on South Park. And he told Kenny that Matt and Trey were fans of the show, and that when they have writer's block in their writer's room, they put on our show. And I think both Kenny and myself didn't really think it was true, or we didn't, we just, whatever. You hear a lot of shit when you're in the business. And then fast forward, I don't know how long, and I'm flying from LA to Toronto. And Kyle McCullough, who I'd never met, Kenny had met him, comes up to me and goes, "Spenny, how are you?" "Yeah, hi, who are you?" He goes, "My name's Kyle. I met Kenny at a film festival. The guys are here." I go, "What guys?" He goes, "Matt and Trey. Don't you know that they're fans of your show?" And I go, "No." Of course, they're rich, and I'm flying, coach, and they're in the first class lounge or whatever, and I'm at the gate. Anyways, sure enough, they come out and they're giving me hugs and this and that. And then they flew in first class. And then when we're deboarding the plane, they said, "Why don't you come to the hotel and have a drink?" And they were in Toronto to do the release party for the DVD of Team America. And so the first thing I did was I called Kenny. When we're in the car, saying, "I'm with Matt and Trey from South Park, and we're going to meet at this hotel." Kenny's in Toronto, of course, and we're all in Toronto at this point. He comes to meet us. Long story short, that particular night was a bad drinking night for me. I drank a lot. I drank on the plane on the way there. I drank in the hotel and at the hotel bar, and then we went out for the serious drinking, and I got fucking hammered. And they had a sort of entourage with them, and they were encouraging me to drink, and they were encouraging me to get rowdy. And I spilled over a massive table. I got kicked out of the bar. And Kenny will say that, the South Park guys said, "Okay, you guys are crazy. We love you, but we don't ever want to go out with Spenny again. He's too nuts." And then basically Matt, more than Trey, was more sort of the business minded one of the two, decided he was going to champion us to get on Comedy Central. And then they became executive producers. And ironically, the guy who was running Comedy Central was a Canadian named Doug Herzog, who for some reason hated Kenny and I, didn't like our humor, didn't like the show. But Matt used whatever leverage, which was considerable, because basically my understanding is South Park built Comedy Central. That was their first hit show. Yep. And that's how it happened. And to this day, I know that Matt, they were interviewed for their thing, and they said, "Last night we went out with Kenny and Spenny, and those guys are amazing," kind of thing. So my take on it is that if I didn't behave like a boor, who knows what would have happened. Kenny's take is that I could have screwed it up, but he saved it. But he'll always create a narrative where he's the hero. So I to this day, I don't know. And honestly, I don't care. I was thrilled to be a part of them and have their name on. But because the head of the network didn't like us, and because it was a co-production of Canada and the US, they never got behind the show the way they would, a Comedy Central original show, Sarah Silverman, The Daily Show, whatever shows they were doing. And so we didn't do that great. And it wasn't our fault. I know it wasn't, because they kept changing the time slot. They didn't promote it properly. They didn't promote it at all. So that was what happened.
Man, it's just awesome that you guys were on there and then connected to South Park, which gave you a nice rub, of course.
Yeah, well, Kenny ended up writing. They hired him for I don't know how long he did that, but he worked for them for a little bit. Yeah, they left us alone basically, and that's what they want, is to be left alone with their work. And so it was great. It was fun. I had a few verbal arguments with them that first drunken night because I felt they were a bit snobby about comedy. But other than that, it was a gift. I think the show could have taken and should have taken off in the US, which would have made us a boatload of cash, but didn't happen.
Yes. So as far as Kenny versus Spenny, like that ends, what was the Paldemic, or however you pronounce it, Paldemic special? Because here I'm only able to see like basically clips of it. I can't see the whole thing. For some reason, it's like blocked in the States when I was trying to watch it. So I always saw the trailer, but what was that?
It was basically a one-off special for CBC, which is like our national network. You guys have NBC, CBS, ABC. That's ours, CBC, and there's global. There's a couple of them, but they have a online network, and that was what bought the Paldemic, and it was just Kenny and Spenny during COVID kind of thing. And it was a one-off thing. People thought it was a pilot for a series, or there was going to be a series out of it.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
No, it was never. It was just always a one-off.
And it's basically like real life, like why you guys not separated, but why you guys are philosophically different. Is that like the gist?
No, I think that I think the Paldemic sort of reflected where we were going with our live show, which was the resentments that Kenny has held on to. I don't know whether he really feels resentful or he feels like I've got to hold on to this resentment to keep the laughs coming. He just has a lot of resentments about me. I don't want to get into it. It's complicated and long, and some of it plays out in our live show. But he thinks that I've never listened to him, and I'd be in a better place in life if I followed his advice. Just guy things, and the way that project came up to me was very insulting, so I was pissed off from day one, because we'd always been partners, and all of a sudden I get a thing saying Kenny sold the show and you're going to be on it as an employee, not as a owner. And I said, well, I'm not doing it. And we worked it out. It seems like every time there's anything happens with us in business, it stresses the shit out of me, because we go through some kind of, old resentment things. And then I have to use the leverage of being me. And, anyways, it's ugly and I hate it. But that's what it seems to be every time we get, an offer or whatever. But he claims that he sold that series, and it was supposed to be just him, and then he decided he wanted me in it, and that he had a partner from the original. I don't know what the truth is. It could be the truth. I don't know. But we did it. I think it was fun. I know you can't get it. The reason is because they block it if it's on an internet show, right? But I would imagine if you're creative, with whatever they call it, where the illegal copying of those sites, you could probably see it. But it's a very personal thing about our sort of relationship, and that was maybe what he had planned, and to bring me on, and I was, I finally, it was just the one-off though.
The trailer is great. I watched it a few times. He's definitely prodding and poking you, and he's trying to get a reaction out of you for sure.
Yeah. But I think that his resentment is very real, and there's some legitimate reasons for it. I can't, for the life of me, figure out how he hasn't dropped it already and moved on. But maybe he thinks that that's what's fueling our comedy. I'm not sure, but I don't think you need that to fuel the comedy. But maybe he needs it, but I don't. I mean, we're so different, anyways, that we could always find humor in our conflicts.
Now, I know you said before, and obviously we were talking about it and why you came on. You're a huge wrestling fan.
Yes.
Who's the favorite wrestler? How'd you get into wrestling? Like,
right here.
Who do you love?
Right here.
Ah, the Sheik.
The Sheik, the original Sheik, and Bobo Brazil. And I got to see them wrestle in Buffalo, New York.
That's an awesome shirt.
Yeah, and they had a very long running feud and a great feud, because back then, I mean, the Sheik was. I used to go to Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, which is
awesome.
a huge hub of professional wrestling in Canada. And, I'd see the Sheik, and I was very young, and he scared the living shit out of me. And I think my cousin took me, and he probably knew it was, a bit of a showbiz, but I was too young to understand all that. So he has been imprinted on my mind as just this scary guy. And when you pick your favorite, I mean, I could pick a bunch of wrestlers that I love, but my favorite was that feud. Bobo was my favorite face, and I got to see him many times, and I got to meet Bobo Brazil. Believe it or not, I was just a kid.
Wow.
Yeah, that was in Keswick, Ontario, and I'll never forget it because there was I guess you would have heard of the Love Brothers, Hartford and Reginald, the Love Brothers. They were a Canadian tag team that did the hippie gimmick, which is really funny because they were heels. They were the furthest thing from hippies. But anyways, I remember I bought my 8x10 of Bobo, which I've since lost, but I have another one on my wall. And the wrestlers were coming out of their dressing rooms, and they were sort of mingling and signing autographs. And I remember I had Bobo's signature on the 8x10, and I went over to the Love Brothers, and they looked at Bobo and they walked away like they wouldn't sign it, like they're totally doing the kayfabe thing,
Yep.
And that was I just think wrestling is show business, and I must have known it intrinsically. I'm not a current fan. I have to be honest. I don't have time. I'm a father now, and I do my own work, and it's nothing against it. But I have this theory about music, and wrestling falls into this as well. Those years where you really didn't have a lot to do, where you could spend hours and hours entertaining yourself. That is cemented in me as my era in wrestling. I had the magazines. I had, I was really into it. When I enjoyed the WWF when it got kind of cartoony before the Attitude Era, but that was sort of it. Me being current with the product was starting to peter out at that point. I just had other things that I was into, but will always respect and love professional wrestling.
I don't know if you'd be interested in this, and I don't think it's out yet, but there's an author here in the States, Brian Solomon. Mm-hmm. He's writing a book on the Sheik. Like, it's a complete biography of the Sheik. I was like, man, that's got to be cool. Like, to get some of that stuff. And he's saying that he's got all this historical stuff, like stuff, because he never broke kayfabe. And,
right.
So that's got to be a cool book.
I have searched YouTube. I also loved Ernie Roth, Abdullah Farouk, his manager, and the Grand Wizard. And there's just nothing. And then I reached out to Sabu, who I followed on Twitter, and we had gone back and forth. And I finally asked him, what, can you tell me anything about your uncle that's not known? And he never got back to me again. So he's keeping the kayfabe. Yeah. I'll definitely look at that book. I'm friendly with I'm going to forget his name now. He wrote Heels. He's a big wrestling writer, Slam Wrestling. What the hell's his name?
Greg Oliver.
Thank you. I've met him a few times, and we've had a few drinks and chatted about old school. I've always liked the sort of, and I think Kenny versus Spenny is this, a sort of bargain basement entertainment. In stand-up, it could be Dice Clay, or in sports, it would certainly be wrestling. But I just love that stuff, and there's a confluence of comedy in wrestling that I love that seems to be gone now. I mean, Bobby Heenan was hilarious. I mean, the guy was hilarious. Even CM Punk was the last wrestler I went to. What do they call those shows that aren't televised? A dark
house shows.
A house show, and it was the first time I'd seen him live, and the way he interacted with the audience was really funny and great. I think for me, it's almost too athletic now for me, which if for someone else, that might be why they love it. I don't know. I miss the managers a lot. I got to be a sort of a cross between Eddie Creechman and Abdullah Farouk guy, Ernie Roth. I created this wrestling character when I worked with Dreamer and Gunn, and that was a lot of fun, just doing the gravelly voice. And I used to have a humor column in a newspaper in my town I live in now, Kingston, and I did a whole thing on imagining what a wrestling manager school would be. And I had a brochure that I printed up. It was really funny and had pictures of, Slick and Heenan and all those characters. I do miss that when I do look at the new stuff. The last manager I remember was, what's his name with the big bushy mustache? Dutch Mantel. He was the right Easton. Yeah.
Uncle
Zeb,
like, or whatever. He was Zeb Coulter.
Yeah. Zeb Coulter. That's it. But the thing is, everything evolves, and that's just something I've learned about show business. You have a pocket that maybe is something you liked at a time when you could really get into it, but it'll evolve to something else, and new people will like it for other reasons. It's just, I don't think it's ever going to come back the way I want it to, but maybe I'm wrong, but it's just, that was the era that I grew up in, and I fucking love it. And it's all on YouTube. Like I lie in bed when I can't sleep. I get on YouTube and I'm looking up the Mighty Igor. I mean, you could go, it's a million of them, where I just look at their matches, and they're so much fun. Ernie Ladd and, the Flying Kangaroos and all these guys that I'd see either at the Gardens or at the what used to be called the Memorial Auditorium in Buffalo, New York, which was bloodier. And, that's where I'd see Abdul the Butcher. I never saw the Butcher in Canada, which is weird because he's Canadian, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I love that about wrestling too. Like Larry Shreve, is that his name?
Yes.
He's just the soft-spoken Canadian guy. When you hear him, it's so funny to me. I just love that. It's like Andy Kaufman. The Andy Kaufman, Kenny and I both, the wrestling he did with Lawler and that whole thing is so great. And it wasn't filmed properly. It's very rough. A lot of it's just the television footage from Memphis. But oh my God, that convergence of his sort of improvisational, what do they call that kind of comedy? Performance art with professional wrestling. It's just it's just sublime.
I love when he pulls up the soap. He goes, soap.
This
is soap. Yeah. Soap.
My favorite bit, this is something I just discovered. So if you recall, there's a point where I guess he's leaving Memphis and he makes this huge speech. I'm never coming back to Memphis again. And he's belaboring it. And then he steps out onto the apron and then he goes, I shall return. Right. And then I'm watching, this was like a couple of weeks ago. It was a Tony Clifton from the early days of Tony Clifton, which could have been 10 years before this is when he was just a club comic. And Clifton wasn't in the full makeup. He was just had a mustache on and a bad tux. And he did the same thing. It's the same joke. He did the thing where he's mad at the audience, and it was just, and he said, I'm leaving. I'm never coming back. And then he leaves and he walks right back on stage. So, I just, being a wrestling nerd and a comedy nerd, when the two are together, it's pretty amazing for me.
Kaufman's such a genius. And him and Laura aren't going to have great matches, but it's so interesting. And he breaks his neck and so good.
The storytelling and the switch with Jimmy Hart at the end and the whole, I mean, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Even My Breakfast with Blassie, which is really atrocious in a way, but I can't get enough of it. I love that movie. It's so bad. It's wonderful.
Yep. And like those guys, it's like almost like a lost art where it's like they're so convincing, but they're from the outside field, but they get into it and they are just engrossed. You know what I mean? It's like almost a lost art. People don't.
The manager. It's very carny. It's really carny. Those guys with the accents and the And I, but even now I go to carnivals and little things that come to my town, and you see the older guys, but they're dying out. That's the evolution I'm talking about. They're gone. It's like vaudeville, man. It's gone. It's never coming back. There was a day when you could go see the Marx Brothers live in a theater. Like, can you imagine? And but that's life. You gotta deal with it. But I'd like to think there maybe will be some resurgence of the crazy manager. I wanted to sell or get WWE's network to do. I'd written a comedy piece. It would have been a one-time comedy piece about like an Ernie Roth type manager, but he was real. He wasn't an actor, and his life story of how he became this raging lunatic.
Yeah.
I wanted to walk around, Toronto with the get up on and interact with people, imagining what, the weasel would be like at a grocery store,
Yeah.
It would have been so much fun and entertaining, but they have some pretty serious gates up at WWE, and it's probably not something that's profitable for them. And it's really just a function of my comedic head and my love of that school of wrestling. But I'd love to see it. I'd love to, if I can't make it, I'd love someone to make something like that. And I also had an idea for an independent film. This was before Mickey Rourke did The Wrestler, which was a tremendous film with an amazing director. But I have a total movie in my head. I haven't written it out, but it's been in my head so long. That's based on the sort of the Sheik and Ernie Roth in those days on the road, and there's an assassination attempt. It's an interesting, dark kind of movie, but it would be funny too, just because of the nature of the characters in it. But I got a million of those kind of ideas that'll never see the light of day for whatever reason.
The new president or new world president, Nick Khan of WWE, he's interested in a lot of outside projects. They have this show, I guess, that they're creating called McMahon, and it's about Vince. So he's saying that they're open to doing all these other projects. They want to expand beyond wrestling, but do wrestling-related content. You might fit right perfectly in with.
Well, why don't you do, John Poz? Why don't you make it happen? We'll do it together.
All right.
Because at the end of the day, I love wrestling, but for me to do any of these projects that I just talked about, I would need help with someone who's a little more grounded. I'm grounded in the comedy music world more than the wrestling world, but the ideas are solid. I didn't even know that someone else is running that whole operation. When I really was excited about it, the first idea about the comedy, the one-time comedy about the how like the wizard became the wizard kind of thing.
Yes.
I spoke to Sean Waltman, and it's just impossible to get traction with these people. You probably know.
Oh my God, yeah.
I don't know how you got all those names on your show.
I know. Sometimes I'm like, how did I get them? Like a little bit of luck.
Did you pay them? I know you're not paying me. No, that's even more amazing. Yeah. So, I'll we can do it together. I mean, I'm trying to, and I just love the concept. It's one of those things where I could write up a 2-pager about it. If you could get it to this guy and he'll say, thumbs up, thumbs down, I think it's a funny idea, but I'm old school, right? I don't know if but like you said, they're doing docs on the Sheik. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a bunch of stuff there that you never know, like what's their philosophy, because they're making so much money now. They probably want to see if they can branch off and do other stuff.
Yeah, well, content is content, and you can only. I mean, I know Vince owns all the content now of the wrestling stuff, but yeah, you want to do other things, and they've been doing it. The cartoon, the old school guys living in the house together. I mean, all that stuff.
Yeah. So as we hit the wind down, we head towards the finish here.
Yes.
When you look back at Kenny versus Spenny, and I know you're still doing tours and stuff, like, is it one of those things where it's awesome, like looking back, like what a legacy you left behind, like that's just an unbelievable kind of show? Or do you look back like, man, I kind of regret some of that stuff, or oh, Kenny's an asshole, I resent, some of the resentment
It's
stuff.
funny because I was thinking about that today, of all things, before we did this. It would be easy for me to, and maybe easy for Kenny to say, oh, fuck, like, what if I had not done Kenny versus Spenny and had a band or did something on my own? Because I've done things on my own, and so has he. But the reality is, it's so hard to break through, and I don't think it gets easier. Maybe I'm wrong, but you think with all the channels and all the cable, it's easier. But from my perspective, it's harder. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the kind of work I like, which is not the most politically correct and all that stuff. So I have to look back with gratitude, that, there's a chance if I just played music, it would have been over 10 years ago, but because I'm Spenny from Kenny versus Spenny, I'll still get people to see my show. Where I've compromised is, my manager promoter said, you got to do a little more comedy in your music show because, you're a good musician, blah, blah, blah. There's a million good musicians and that's not what people want from you.
Right.
So that's where I came up with Renaissance Man, which is it's loaded with comedic stuff and clips from my career, from all the different projects in my career. And then at the end, I'll play real music for as long as people want to sit and listen to it. So, you have to, it's a business, right? And, you gotta, if you're lucky enough to have broken through and have any kind of, relevancy or an audience or whatever you want to call it, you got to service that if you're serious about making money doing it. I mean, it's just that simple, and furthermore, you don't do this in a vacuum. I don't play music to play alone in my basement. And I didn't make little videos or movies. You want people to see it, right? That's what it's all. It's not just the money there, but yeah, you talked about the legacy, but that's true of any creative thing that you do that you lay down. Like you're laying down your series, and when it's all said and done, you'll probably have hundreds of episodes of this podcast, and it lives on its own terms, and that's kind of what art is, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like whether it's a painter painting on a canvas that people are going to look at for generations and centuries, that's why they do it, I would think. I mean, you can love to do it, but if you're going to make that step to show it, that means you want people to see it, right?
Absolutely. And of course, the U.S. tour, you get your own tour, but the U.S. tour, get the tickets on Eventbrite. Just put Kenny versus Spenny in there.
Whoa, actually, yes, Eventbrite. Sorry, yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
You said it was New York, Philly, New Jersey, and
Detroit.
Oh, Detroit. Nice. Another good one. Okay.
Yeah.
So anybody wants those tickets.
We're very excited. You're going to see a really train wreck of a tight show that's been, we literally are picking our favorite bits from 5-6 years of touring in Canada and Europe. So it's great. Looking forward to it. The solo shows are in British Columbia. If you go to my social media, it'll have the dates. It's basically the September 27th to October 4th. And love going out to that neck of the woods. It's just gorgeous. Have you ever been to Vancouver? Or...
No, never.
Where are you located, John?
Asbury Park, New Jersey, the home of Bam Bam Bigelow.
Springsteen and Bam Bam Bigelow. Cool. All right. Well, so you're going to see us where? Jersey?
Yep. Garwood, New Jersey, October 16th. I got my tickets via Eventbrite.
All right. Shoot me an email before so that you can come back and meet that stinky hots.
Yes, definitely. What is the social media, by the way? All your plugs.
Yeah, it's Twitter at Spenny, Facebook Spencer Spenny Rice, the fan page, and then Instagram is Spencer Spenny Rice.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for all the time. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to the tour.
John, thanks very much, and we'll see you down the road.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
All right, bye. Bye.